Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Stephen Roberts. I'm a project manager with the Metropolitan St. Louis Sewer District, and we're here to present to you the Geyer Sanitary Relief and Windsor Springs P521 storage improvements. We have a group of people here who I would like to introduce. Andy, why don't you get started?
Thanks, Steve. Hi, I'm Andy Likes. I'm one of the facilitators for Project Clear, and we're helping with the public engagement portion of this wastewater project. Jason?
Hi, everybody. My name is Jason Dennis. I'm with Burns & McDonnell, and I am the project manager for the design consultant.
We also have Saad Amir. He is the person kind of behind the scenes, taking your questions and anything else that may arise with the technology as we move forward. So with that, Andy, would you like to go ahead and get started?
Love it, Steve. Thanks so much. So I'm going to give you kind of an idea of what we're going to talk about for the next few minutes here. This meeting is going to go over a lot of different technology. So we're going to give you kind of a behind the scenes look at what MSD Project Clear is doing. And we're going to talk a little bit about the ground rules. This is a very new type of virtual meeting. We've only done a few of these, so we're changing things up to make sure that you get what you need from the meeting. We're going to give you an overview of MSD Project Clear. We're going to talk about the project specifics for this particular project, because every project that MSD Project Clear does is different. So we want to make sure that we talk about your specific issues for this project. In a little bit, Jason and Steve are going to go over some frequently asked questions. So we know that you are going to have questions. We're absolutely certain of it. So we want to make sure we hit some of those major questions that we get from a lot of different audiences. So we'll tackle those first, and then we'll open it up for Q&A for everyone on the Zoom today. We're going to spend as much or as little time on things as you may need. So a couple of things that we need to go over for this virtual town hall platform. Participants are in listen and view mode, which means that you can't participate in this. The way that we're going to keep you engaged is we want you to log in if you have a question under the Q&A feature. If you just toggle your mouse at the bottom of the screen, a little view will pop up and it'll say Q&A. If you have a question, we would love for you to enter that question there at any time during the meeting this evening. We want to make sure that your voice is heard. Now, we're going to take questions in two very different ways. If the question relates to this project in specific, we will likely answer that question during the session with one of our experts, either Jason or Steve. If it's something that maybe isn't project specific as much, maybe it's more personal to your property or your area of the neighborhood, Saad, who Steve mentioned a moment ago, will take that question and answer it in the chat feature directly to you, so that we keep questions that are applicable to the entire area to the folks who are on the meeting this evening. Hope that makes sense for everybody. If you have questions, we definitely want to hear them. If you see in the chat feature that there are similar questions to ones that you have, we want you to upvote those. Those are the thumbs up features. You want to hit that if you have a similar question to one that's already been asked. We don't want to have the same question over and over, but if you have a similar one, we want to make sure that we get to that. And with that, I'm going to start talking a little bit about Project Clear and some of the details that go into making MSD two different utilities. MSD is actually a government utility. It was voter approved back in 1954, so MSD's been around for a long time. But as I mentioned, it's actually two different utilities. It's like being the power company and the gas company. There's a wastewater side of things and a stormwater side of things. Overall, 1.3 million customers served in 88 different municipalities across most of St. Louis County. There are 7 different treatment plants. You likely know where most of those are. MSD treats a lot of wastewater every day, 350 million gallons to be specific, more than that every single day. It makes MSD the fourth largest sewer system in the country. That's behind Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, and then St. Louis. So we have a lot to go over, a lot to do every single day. It's out of sight, out of mind for a lot of people, but sewers are a vital resource for the St. Louis region. With that, I will turn it over to Jason from Burns and McDonnell, who's going to take us through the project.
Thank you, Andy. As Andy mentioned, my name is Jason Dennis. I'm the Burns and McDonnell project manager. You see on the slide there, Steve Roberts is the MSD project manager. So I'll kind of be walking through the project, the location, kind of all the details, and hopefully get to answer any questions that you have. As Andy alluded to, MSD covers both stormwater and wastewater. This project is is a wastewater project. It's a wastewater pump station and force main sewer. So what is a pump station and force main as opposed to a gravity sewer? I think, as most people know, by and large, the gravity sewer is typically what you would utilize to get all the sanitary flow to the wastewater treatment plant. But sometimes you need to actually pump that flow to a certain location in order to get everything working correctly in the collection system and get it to the wastewater treatment plant. So what we're focusing on is the Windsor Springs pump station, Geyer Sanitary Relief. I know it's kind of a mouthful, but so these pictures that you see here on the slide, these are actually pictures of the Windsor Springs P521 pump station. It's an existing pump station and storage facility. And the storage component means that there is built-in storage tanks underground to handle overflow. So if the sewage that's coming into the pump station, if it's inundated, then it backs up into that storage system, and it's just an extra added layer of protection against overflows. So that's essentially what a pump station and force main is. It's it pumps the flow through a pressure force main and into a gravity system. Talk a little bit about the origin of the project. Essentially, what we have here is a pump station it's a little bit older, and it's undersized. So the pumps that are in there are just a little bit too small to be able to handle the flow that's coming in. There's an existing generator on site that's tied to those pumps, and that's a little bit too small as well. So essentially what we're doing is we're beefing up the pump station to add a little bit stronger pumps, a little bit larger generator. It's going to actually be a natural gas generator, and upsizing the pressure force main, or the force main sewer, in order to accommodate that additional flow. And what this is going to do is help to alleviate building backups and overcharged mains in the area, block sewers, things like that. This is a sanitary sewer system, but when you get heavy rainfall, you get a lot of infiltration and inflow, otherwise referred to as I&I. That gets into the sanitary sewer system, and it kind of inundates the system.
So Jason, that's kind of like having too much water in the system, and that's causing problems because some of that storm water gets in the wastewater system. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, and it just inundates the system. So you need to make the facilities just a little bit bigger to be able to handle that. Or you look for areas where you can essentially eliminate the points where that stormwater is getting into the system. So we kind of do a combination of both. So with this project, what we're hoping to do, along with this is obviously also to prevent untreated wastewater from spilling into local waterways. There's an adjacent creek nearby this pump station, and we want to make sure the upgrades are adequate to prevent that from happening. So on the next slide, I'll show you a little bit about this is the map of the project. This is largely in the Kirkwood area, although on the southern area kind of where the pump station is, that's technically in Sunset Hills, but the vast majority of the project is within Kirkwood, north of Highway 44. So the pump station, as you can see from the map, is down there along Craigwall Road. And there's a small piece, about 100 feet or so, of gravity sewer that ties into that pump station that we're going to be upsizing as well, because that's a little bit undersized. But you can see the red line on the map indicates the path of the new 10-inch pressure force main. So that's going to go up Geyer Road along the east side of Geyer Road primarily, and then it will, once it comes up to Big Bend, take a left there at Big Bend, cross the road, and then tie into an existing gravity sewer that actually runs just south of the railroad that you see there on the map. So how will the project be built? That's a really good question. We'll talk a little bit about construction methods. With this project in the area that we're in, there's not a whole lot of room, particularly along Geyer Road and Big Bend. So it's not going to be your typical project where you see a lot of open trench work and a lot of land disturbance and things of that nature. What we wanted to do at the start of this project was to minimize the amount of surface disruption. So essentially what we're going to do for a large majority of this project, everywhere that we can, is to tunnel the sewer into place. So that can be done by many different methods. There's a lot of technologies that are out there, trenchless technologies, I'll call them, that you can use to get this pipe into place without having to do your traditional open cut or open trench method. We think this project is a very good candidate for a technology referred to as horizontal directional drilling, which we have a really nice animation that we'll show a little bit later in this presentation that kind of illustrates how that occurs. But essentially you would have a rig that sets up and essentially drills a hole into the ground and essentially reams out that hole until it's large enough to pull the pipe through. That's kind of a high level oversimplistic view of what it does, but essentially it creates a situation where you have a minimized amount of surface disruption for the force main. So, and then down there at the pump station, I alluded to this a little bit previously, but there's 4 smaller pumps in the pump station now that aren't able to keep up with the flow. I apologize, there's 2 smaller pumps in the pump station now. We're going to be taking out those pumps and replacing them with larger pumps and a larger generator to be able to accommodate that flow. There's some other electrical upgrades and things like that, but those are the main improvements down there at the pump station. In addition to that, there's some site work that'll be done down there at the pump station. There's a gravity sewer that goes into the pump station, and we'll have to replace a few trees in the area. And these are trees that are set in place. They're that's nice landscaping and kind of screening from the pump station. So we'll be replacing those trees in kind. So they'll be the same or better as what was there previously.
All right, Jason, I think we're going to take a look at that video you were talking about now.
Directional drilling is used to install conduits under obstacles such as roads, buildings, and wetlands. As demonstrated in this video, conduits such as water, sewer, fiber, electric, and gas can be installed under very busy intersections without disruption of traffic. A small area is needed to set up the directional drilling equipment. This area can be strategically placed away from congestion and business activities. Before the directional drilling begins, the directional drilling crew pre-plans the bore path to carefully avoid obstructions such as other underground utilities. The horizontal bore begins with a directional drill bit entering the entrance pit. The entrance pit is used to contain and manage the drilling fluids. The directional drilling crew are in radio communication with each other throughout the entire process. The directional drill bit is tracked by a sonde, our radio detection device, housed within its extended connection to the directional drill pipe. The depth and pitch is sent to the surface and received by the walkover locating device. The locator then gathers and interprets the information and gives directions to the directional drill operator on which way to steer the drill bit. An experienced directional drilling crew can navigate and steer the drill bit up, down, right, left, and a combination of varying degrees of each to drill a desired horizontal bore path. The drilling crew has the ability to determine the exact depth and location of the drill bit at all times. A typical mid-sized directional drill uses a 4-inch drill bit to drill a pilot bore. The bore path is typically enlarged to 1.5 size the conduit that is being installed. In this installation, the bore path has to be enlarged to accommodate the conduit, and a reamer is attached to cut a larger diameter hole. The reamer is simply pulled through the existing bore path to enlarge the hole. As depicted in this video, and as with most directional drilling projects, very little of the normal city activities were interrupted during the conduit installation. After the bore path is enlarged, the conduit is simply pulled into place by the directional drill rig. This method of installing utilities has many benefits that include less disruption of commercial activities, less disruption of traffic, less site rehabilitation, and directional drilling can also be used to avoid damage to wetlands, streams, and for river crossings.
So as you can see from the video, it does a really nice job of illustrating essentially how the project would be constructed. So what can residents expect during this process? So right now we're currently in the phase of obtaining easements needed for construction. And primarily this is for equipment, piping, the hydraulic equipment and things like that utilized for the directional drilling itself. It needs some space in order to set up and execute the work. So MSD is currently in the process of doing that, going out and getting those easements. As the animation alluded to, there's minimal surface disruptions, and you can maintain traffic during these directional drilling procedures. However, since there is such a narrow traffic corridor, particularly along Geyer, we would anticipate single lane closures along the east side of the road periodically in order to accommodate the construction equipment that's going to be out there on site. But we anticipate these impacts will be fairly minimal and will be minimized to the extent possible by the contractor and MSD. Resident access is a big question that we get a lot. And again, I think with this project being that it's a directional drilling or trenchless technology, we anticipate very few access issues. That sometimes does come up on these projects, but being that it is largely trenchless in nature, we expect those to be minimized. But I would just say if you do have specific access concerns, to please reach out to the MSD project manager and we can get those addressed. The next slide gives everyone a little bit of an idea of what to expect in terms of what things will look like during construction. As I mentioned, for the vast majority of this project, it's going to be trenchless, but there are some parts that you just can't avoid doing, cutting open a trench and making connections and things like that for pits and areas where we're making tight bends. So I think this graphic does a really good job of giving you an idea of what that would look like during construction, before, during, and after. The goal with these projects is to make sure that we're restoring surface conditions to as good or better than they were before. So all the paved surfaces would be restored, and any of the grass or lawn areas would be sodded and watered until the root takes hold. So just wanted to talk a little bit about where we're at and the tentative schedule for the project. You'll see there design completion in August. So that was just last month we finished up the design. As I mentioned, MSD is currently in the process of obtaining easements. They've actually been doing so for the majority of this year and plan to finish up in January of 21. Estimate the start date by the time everything gets bid and awarded would be next fall. So essentially a year from now, September of 2021, with a 2-year anticipated construction duration. As Andy had alluded to earlier, we do have a few common, frequently asked questions that we get asked about these sorts of projects. So I thought I'd run through a few of them. The first one being, will there be any disruption to sewer service or any other utilities? And the answer to that question is no. The contractor is going to maintain utility services at all time. And we don't anticipate with this project that you're going to lose any utility services whatsoever. Question number 2, what will the neighborhood look like when construction is finished? You know, it is MSD policy that their contractors restore all disturbed services to previous or better conditions. So this is a very nice area. I mean, it's very well maintained, very nice area, and it will be, you know, the contractor will be working very hard to make sure that all of these surface areas that are disturbed are returned to normal or better than the conditions that they were before. Will residents lose access to their homes or businesses during construction? You know, that's, as I mentioned earlier, that's not expected at all during this project. But do please reach out to the MSD project manager if you do have any concerns, either now or when construction starts. If something occurs during construction where you have some concerns about access or any other issue, please just reach out to MSD and we'll take care of it. Question number 4, will a contractor keep the site and driving areas free of debris and clutter? That's a very good question, and I want to be completely open and honest that is something that can arise on these types of projects. The contractor does work as hard as they can, and MSD does as well, to make sure that the debris and clutter is kept to a minimum. But I would just ask, if you do see some housekeeping issues, so to speak, to please reach out and let us know, and we'll get that taken care of as soon as possible.
So Jason, now would be a good time for us to remind everybody that the Q&A portion of the meeting is at the bottom of your screen. If you just toggle your mouse a little bit, it will pop up. Type any questions that you may have in that Q&A portion. And if it's a question that applies to everybody in the area, we're going to answer it with our leaders right now. If it's something that's a little bit more personal, a little project specific to your property, Saad from MSD will answer that to you online, or we'll have the opportunity to ask questions offline a bit more. We wanted to make sure we give everybody the project manager and information for both Burns & McDonnell and MSD, so that if you want to ask a question, maybe you're watching this after it's already aired on the MSD website. This is the way that you can get your questions answered very specifically with Steve Roberts or with Jason Dennis. Steve, is there anything that you would like to add here at the end while we wait for any questions to come in?
No, I really don't have much to add. Just thanking everyone for joining us for this meeting. I think we'll all be, I guess the good news is the construction method. I guess I'll just kind of reiterate some of the things that Jason mentioned. Is this construction method using the directional drilling will minimize the impacts out here. You will not see quite the disruption that we often see with doing an open cut construction. So that is some of the good news we have out here. But yeah, feel free. There's my contact information. Happy to answer any questions that you may have if they should arise.
Great. Jason, is there anything else that you would like to add?
No, not at all. Yeah, I would just reiterate the same thing both of you mentioned. You know, oftentimes when you see these sorts of presentations, you may not have questions right away, but things come up afterwards or after you've had a little bit more time to think about it or talk about it or things like that. But I would just say you've got our contact information for myself and Steve, both email and telephone number. So just feel free to reach out really anytime and let us know if you have any questions or concerns. And thank you for your time.
Great. Well, it looks like we've answered everybody's questions so far. I want to remind everybody that a recording of tonight's meeting will be available at msdprojectclear.org/Geyer. So if you have a neighbor or a family member who needs to watch this, maybe they want to see the video that we showed about this to notice the differences between open trench construction and the boring that we talked about. They will have the opportunity to do that. Send them to the website. If there's no other questions, thank you all very much for joining us this evening. We appreciate your time and have a great evening.
All right. Thanks, Andy. Good night, everyone.